Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be continuing with June's exceptional story, Reunion. In the last episode we went to go meet the Queen. She didn't meet us, but step in the right direction. And now we finished seeing the Princess, which is the mother of our Prince here. And we'll see what we're doing in the evening. The visit to the Princess being over with, the evening your own. Prince Albert Victor has heard of a great many entertainments available in London, but the quantity of choice causes him stress. He prefers to defer to your suggestions. What do you suggest the Prince experience during his short stay in the Meath? Ooh, we have quite a lot of options here. We can spend an evening at the Brass Embassy. A minor diplomat, soon to take the Marigold, is having a farewell ball, increase the Prince's disenchantment. An evening in the Labyrinth of Tigers, a premiere attraction that remains open late. Hazard to the self is usually minimal, and that will increase the Prince's enchantment. An evening at court, the Empress dwells in seclusion. Her family do not make public appearances, but court life continues as best it can. That will increase disenchantment. Oh wait, so there's enchantment, disenchantment. Oh dear. An evening amongst the rubbery men. They will be unlike anything the Prince has encountered before. This will increase the Prince's enchantment. Or an evening at Mahogany Hall. The Prince is likely to see such things there that are the stuff of only the wildest fancy on the surface. And that will increase the Prince's red temptations. I honestly have no idea, so let's just pick one that seems interesting. Let's go to the Labyrinth of Tigers. The Prince has acquired a bag of sweets and is attempting to conceal his nervousness by crunching on them noisily. Occasionally, he remembers to share. All crunching stops when he sees his first tiger, however. He engages one in spirited discourse on the limitation of incarceration, and wise observations on the modernity of London in the reversal of surface trends, where intelligent beasts are shut up, and this is deemed civilized. The tiger is so charmed that he keeps the Prince so occupied he doesn't even glimpse into any of the cages further in. Okay, Prince Albert Victor has 3 tasks. Let's see if we can do one of the other tasks. Where do we like to go? Escort the Prince to his former tutor's home, or escort the Prince to a honey den? Let's go to his former tutor's home. The Prince has an address in Elderwick, where his old friend can be found. The address that the Prince has is of a quiet street in Elderwick. Prettily coloured mushrooms sprout in window boxes. People say "how do" in the street and leave the doors of their quaint houses unlocked. I wonder that he lives in these reduced circumstances, the Prince says, gazing around him. Well, let's knock on the door. The tutor's door is ringed with wilting roses. The Prince takes a deep breath as he approaches the house. Inside, there is the sound of feet running. A butler opens the door onto a vista of domestic bliss. Pictures on the walls, flowers on the tables, the sound of a roaring fire in a hearth somewhere close by. The butler's introduction is interrupted by a wild cry. A man in his mid-30s, chestnut-haired and hearty, bounds through the hallway. "Victor, is that really you? Away with you, Jones. Set the parlour for brandy. Come in, come in." Together, the tutor leads you into a fashionable parlour lined with filled bookshelves. "I'd drill you on your grammar, but I know for a fact that you haven't kept up Latin or Greek since you left Trinity," the tutor says, with a knowing smirk. The Prince makes a face. "I'll wager I've travelled more widely than you, though. The tutor pours him a brandy and passes it to him. I'd hope you have, Victor. Right, let's dine. The table has been arranged. It is decorated by golden flowers in an indigo vase. As you sit down to dinner, the prince and his former tutor make animated conversation about their Cambridge days. Do you remember his parties? I'm amazed he wasn't thrown out. I'm amazed we weren't thrown out. The door opens, and a man, handsome and well-dressed, enters, carrying plates and wine. He puts one hand on the tutor's shoulder and waits to be introduced. This is Emilio, the tutor says. He's my helpmeet. Emilio's smile widens. At this, the prince starts. My goodness, would you excuse me? He says. I realize I've quite forgotten my gift. I brought something for you. The Cambridge tutor declares that the prince's company is more than enough, but the prince is insistent. I'll be right back, he says, making for the door. Don't get up on my account, I'll be back, his voice carries as the door closes. The tutor and Emilio turn their attention to you. He's always been high-strung. I think the openness of London has frightened him, he says. What we have here isn't possible on the surface. Not yet, Emilio finishes. They seem keen to discuss something else. They look to you to stir the conversation to happier topics. Well, let's ask about the prince. The Cambridge tutor and he knew each other well in days gone by. Well, I was contracted to him before he came up to Cambridge. Personal tutor, then friend at college. They thought we'd get along. He was in awe of me, I think. Copied my hair, my wardrobe, flirted with the women I did, and of course, the other undergraduates. The tutor smiles. His health was poor. His time with us always seemed short. And that dear woman, his mother had him so cosseted. I don't know what she's more frightened of, that he'll never achieve his birthright, or worse, that he will, and he'll be taken from her. The tutor sighs. With a family like his, you understand why he's so terminally indecisive. He says this last with considerable fondness. Let's ask about Cambridge. What was the prince's life there like? The laughter lines on the tutor's face deepen as he speaks of his lazy, feckless prince. The hours spent in freezing Germany preparing him to reach a point of education, attainment, where he'd benefit from Cambridge at all. Royalty always studies at one of the two celebrated institutions, Emilio explains. I'd say I gave our Victor a very liberal education, away from his mother and able to forget his ill health. There was tennis and balls, evenings at various lodgings. The tutor's tone turns wistful. I didn't think he'd ever be free again, so I gave him everything, before duty called him away. Seems very kind of him. Let's turn the subject to the tutor. How did he come to the Neath? The Cambridge tutor steals a glance at Emilio. I wasn't here at the fall. I came later, via Naples. Emilio helped me get onto the canal, and then, well, descent has its own logic. He reaches across the table and takes Emilio's hand. As for why, well, there was a conversation about me at Cambridge. Accurate conversation, mind. But as things are on the surface, an exit seemed wise. And we've all heard of London's new liberality. He grins at Emilio. And a handsome Neapolitan smuggler proved the final incentive. There is a rap at the door. The butler's footsteps tread upon the carpet. The Cambridge tutor gives you a tight smile. I'm afraid I must ask you to be discreet about what Emilio and I are to each other. Better he think he's made a mistake about our relationship. The things that are possible here are not possible for princes on the surface. He has a life, a family waiting in the sun. He still has the sun. The tutor is melancholy for a minute. I don't want him imagining he could live in London. It's not a possibility for him. Better he not be tempted at all. Emilio gives his husband a curious glance, but says nothing. And then the prince is bounding into the room, bottle of ludicrously expensive wine in hand. Let's play along, I feel. Well, we can either refuse the pretense or play along. Perhaps you agree that the prince would be safer returned to the surface, not lingering in London and in dreams. Or we can refuse. Perhaps you'd prefer the prince to be open-eyed to the possibility London offers. But he does have a duty, and I feel him being down here probably not in his best interest. Let's play along. I'm starting to think disenchantment and enchantment is with London itself. We're encouraging or discouraging his want to be down here. The Cambridge tutor gives you a grateful look as you help him and his husband shore up the fiction that they are simply tenants of the same landlord. The wine is poured liberally and helps to lubricate the artifice. The evening is swept along on a tide of remembrances, fond, lewd, and occasionally scholarly. The prince listens, wide-eyed, to the tutor's tales of the Cumaean Canal, which are punctured by Emilio's more knowledgeable explanations. The hour is late when the plates are cleared and the clocks are sounding midnight. Hands are shaken, dishes are cleared. The Cambridge tutor thanks you for guiding the wayward prince. Prince smiles awkwardly. I'm a little old for all that, he murmurs unconvincingly. The farewells at the door are lengthy. The prince can scarcely keep his eyes off his former tutor, as though committing him to memory. But eventually, it is time, and you must be getting on. Let's leave. The evening nears, along with your appointment to the Princess Alexandra. The prince lingers in the doorway. The Cambridge tutor leans in and whispers something to him. As the prince returns to you, having made his goodbye, his cheeks look flushed. The door closes behind him. Albert Victor shakes himself and gazes up at the cavern roof. His face is dark in the light of a bright false star above. I didn't know, he says, how things were down here. How very much. Peels off and shakes his head. Come on, mother's waiting. She can be terrible if she thinks she's been snubbed. As you exit Westminster, a servant in a sombre livery of the shuttered palace approaches. He bears a silver tray on which sits an envelope, red as shed blood. It is addressed to the Prince Albert Victor. Open it, do, he says. I always cut myself with a letter knife. Though with that envelope, who'd notice? Garish, I'd call it. It can only have come from the palace. Who else knows the prince is in London? The missive is curt, though the writing is ornate. It gleams in the bright gaslight of the Westminster like a divine oracle. It is a request to attend a family dinner from an aunt who would very much like to meet the nephew she's never known. The date is that of the prince's last night in London. She is otherwise occupied until then. The captivating princess signs her name in red. Oh no, the captivating princess. How bad can this go? Albert Victor's expression is stunned. An aunt? Oh, I had no idea I had another one. And she wants to see me, in the flesh. He takes out a handkerchief, and embarrassed, looks away from you. Excuse me, terribly sorry, he says, looking away. If she needs a response, the answer is yes, of course, and of course you may come too. Oh dear, so we can warn him of the princess's reputation. The captivating princess wears scandal, like a shawl. There are rumours about her associations with honey. And they are not good rumours. Or we can say nothing. It's a family affair. I think I'm siding more with this Charmin at this point. Not entirely sure why, but I think this poor prince should leave. So let's warn him of the princess's reputation. For the first time, Albert Victor gives you a cool look. My family is still persecuted, I see. Too German for London. Our tragedies are tedious, I know. He snorts and turns away. You don't have to come, but I won't turn away from blood. He shakes his head. I know you meant well. I'm sorry I snapped. He smiles, guileless as a puppy. So, where to next, Virgil? Oh dear, he didn't like that, did he? Well, let's go back to the Westminster. So we could meet him alone. But let's meet the princess with Albert again and see if there's anything different here. The prince gives you an encouraging nod as you enter the grandeur of the Westminster. I'll echo whatever you say to Mater. No need to upset her with too much truth, he says with a wink. Don't worry, I won't jeopardize your reward. After all, this is my mess. Let's tell the truth. Again, we have nothing to hide. Alexandra frowns. I would never have permitted a remaking of that acquaintanceship. She turns away to find herself staring at her reflection in the mirror on the wall. A small line of worry wrinkles her forehead. It does not surprise me that he ended up down here. Always he went before my son in vice. Her mouth turns into a snarl. She fights for control for a moment, before managing a brittle smile. Alexandra settles back into her seat. She has a tray of Belgian chocolate before her. Yes, we have read this before. Let's ask about her flight, how she escaped the fall of London. Alexandra glances at her son. I was not in London when it fell, my dear. My husband and I divided our duties so that I could spend time at home. My home. A princess always helps with diplomacy, and my poor husband was so busy in London. Her laugh is like brittle glass. When it fell, all was chaos. You can't imagine what we thought up here. The rescue attempts, the frantic search for news of any kind, and then things were so unstable. But I came for my darling boy as soon as I could. She takes his hand. It pales a little, so tight is her grip. The princess falls silent. Eventually, he reaches for a bell. You are dismissed. Now we can spend the evening with the prince. Go before we went to the Labyrinth of Tigers, didn't we? We could go to court. How boring could that be? If I'm going for disenchantment, go to the Brass Embassy. That place is interesting. It's full of devils, and everyone loves the devils. Even disguised, the prince finds himself an object of attention. Do the devil see through it? Or is it just that he is so recently from the surface? His thoughts on surface matters are solicited. What does one make of the souls in Prussia? Are they as delectable as one would hope? Do the cold winters have an effect? And if so, positive or negative? One deviless giggles behind her fan as the prince stammers in search of an answer. I don't think I like it here, the prince says, coming to you for rescue. In fact, I am certain that I do not. Okay, I think I'm going to end the episode here. We've done one more of the prince's wishes. Just at the end here, I'm going to apologise for not making as many videos this week that this video came out. I had the COVID vaccine earlier in the week, and it kind of knocked me on my ass. So I'm feeling a bit rough. So I just about managed to get this done. So apologies for the kind of not as great reading as I would normally do. But hopefully I will feel better by next week, and we can carry on with everything like normal. But thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And as always, I'll see you next time.